Hello guys, Chris here and welcome to episode 26 of the Pocket Podcast. Today we have an exciting guest in Kyle Hunt. Now Kyle's story is literally the most unique thing I've heard in a long time. He went in and out of foster care from the ages of under 2 years old all the way to 11 when he decided to run away from home. This guy's story is super inspiring. And if you are going through a tough time or you're going through a low or you've been dealt a bad hand of cards, listen to this and you'll have the belief that no matter where you've come from, you can make and achieve all the goals that you want in your life. It's honestly insane. And to be honest, this guy is a unique one in the sense of where he's going to. He's chasing lives and people like Elon Musk. He's trying to solve major world problems and be one of those people that literally changes the world, which you have to be a unique character to want to do that because you've got to be somewhat crazy, right? Because the negatives and the downsides and the sacrifice that comes with a life like that is extreme. So I'm super excited for you guys to listen to this episode. I absolutely loved it. And I cannot wait for you guys to tune in and let me know your thoughts as well. So without further ado, let's dive straight into the episode with Kyle. Just before we jump into this episode with Kyle, we need to take a minute to thank our sponsors of the podcast, Switch Nutrition. In my hands right now, I have 3 products that I take every single day that I absolutely love, but I want to talk really quickly on foundational health. There are so many different things that you can be told online about supplements and what you should be taking, but I really love to strip it back to the foundations and what are the things that we actually need every single day to take care of our foundational health. Now, these products are the ones that I take every day for my foundational health. It starts with this hydrate in the morning. I take a scoop of this so I'm hydrated and ready to go to attack the day. I take the adrenal just before bed, which is the sleep formula that absolutely makes you sleep like a baby. If you saw my Instagram story the other day, you would see that I get into a deep sleep very quickly, and this plays a massive role with that. And the collagen is the collagen protein, which is good for hair, skin, joints, nails. It's also helping you hit that protein goal so you can retain and grow those muscles. I love all of these ones. So if you want to try out any of Switch's products, you can go to the link in the show notes or the description below. And it is my collections page that actually takes you to the products that I'm holding right now and some of the other ones that I do love to take every single day. And you can use code Chris Griffin at checkout and you'll get 20% off your entire order. That is Switch Nutrition, and use the link in the description or the show notes below and you'll get 20% off your entire order when you use code Chris Griffin. Let's get into the show with Kyle. First pod in the studio, brother.
Yeah.
It's the very first pod in the studio.
Feels welcoming.
It feels welcoming, hey?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, this is a dream to build something like this, honestly. And when I look back at it, it's only been 25 weeks with the show, but it's just been growing so much. And obviously, as I said to you at coffee, it's one of those things where I want to lean into it, and I dropped everything else to go all in. So I want to just I want to do it properly and take it seriously.
It looks better than actual podcasts that you rent out, like the studios that you rent out.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I was already renting out studios, so I wanted to make sure that if I was going to do my own, it was going to be at that standard too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important, man. But bro, before the show, I got you to write down a quote for me. It was last minute. It was something that you love, so that came to mind straight away. And you were like, I don't really have a quote. But I saw when we were at breakfast, I saw a couple of words on your screensaver. I said, so what is that quote? And on your screensaver on your phone, it says, pessimistic or optimistic, live a shit life or a good one. Mate, I'm so intrigued by that quote and what that means to you.
Yeah. I just found that even though I've got a lot going on in my life and I feel like I'm heading in the right direction, I had a very negative thought pattern. I felt every day I woke up, I wouldn't wake up with super positive thoughts. It'd be super negative thoughts, like you need to get this done. You're doing this so poorly, and it's all about everything I'm doing poorly. And there was just this one time where I was just having a really, really bad day. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to have a bad day today. And I just completely changed my mindset in that moment and was like, oh, today's actually a great day. And that's just what I kept on thinking. And then by the end of the day, I was like, holy shit, I actually had a great day, even though it was like I would have lived the same day whether I had bad thoughts or great thoughts. It would have still turned out the same day. But yeah, I just had a great day. So I was like, you know what? I'm putting that as my screensaver.
I feel like our natural instinct is to think of the negatives. We can have like 100 things going so well, but then we just hone in on one bad thing that's happening.
Yeah,
And
literally.
I love when you said that, like pessimistic or optimistic. Are we seeing the glass half empty or half full? We can focus on all the things that are good and also focus on the things that we can control, because a lot of those negative thoughts are things that we can't even control, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. So I'm like, why am I trying to stress about things that I can't control? And yeah, I'm already working myself to the bone on the things that I can control. So why am I stressing?
Yeah. Do you think that stress, because obviously like with the path that you're on, and we've spoke a little bit off camera just about obviously the journey you're on, the things you're trying to achieve, a lot of stress comes with that, right? Having a big team, running a business, striving for all those goals, but then also trying to live as well outside of that. There's a lot of stress that comes with it. Do you think stress and managing stress is a big thing in your life?
Yeah, I feel like I'm stressed quite a lot of the time. And I think that's just because I'm very hard on myself, opposed from actually just doing my day to day. Because I feel like I can do my day to day pretty easy. And if I don't know what to do, I'll just go and learn it. And all of a sudden I can do it. But yeah, I put a lot of stress on myself. So I don't know. I don't do what everyone else does. Like everyone else meditates and does like all these like really self help things. When I stress, I just go, okay, cool. I need to do more work so I can like work my way out of this stress and get myself to that next part of, whatever that's supposed to be.
I love when you say work your way out of the stress. The most stress freeing thing you can do is tick things off the to-do list, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like because you can do all these other things, but then when it comes back to this concept, which we'll talk about just after this about time, when you do all these other things that are kind to the mind, you feel like you're just wasting time. And the way to remove that stress is by actually just doing the things that need to be done.
Yeah. My staff always laugh at me. If you go into my office, you'll see whiteboards in every room, literally every room. And I always just go into people's rooms and I'll just start writing on their whiteboards of things I need to get done, because all of my whiteboards are full. All the ones in the boardroom, all the ones in like the executive offices are all full. So I just start writing on random people's whiteboards. So yeah, I have to-do lists literally everywhere.
How do you manage that? Like, I really want to know that, because for me, when I've looked at the times in business, and you said just before, I don't know something, I learn something, and you're probably going through that very regularly, especially at the growth that you're trying to grow at, and the bunch of different things that you're trying to start up as well. Like, how do you manage that?
How do I manage? You mean learning?
Yeah. Well, you've got like the learning aspect, but also just stress, like writing down all the things on all these whiteboards, because your whiteboard's full, it's forever ending. Like, do you draw a line somewhere, or do you just feel like, okay, let's just onboard it all, let's just keep going? Like, how do you manage it?
Yeah, I just use a simple rule called the 80-20 rule. So if I write down 1,000,001 things, which I end up doing anyway, and I feel like a lot of people do that, they just have an endless list of things to get done. Yeah, it's just, okay, what are the 20% of things I can focus on that'll give me the 80% result out of all these things? And then I'll just get rid of all the rest. So
the most needle moving things, I guess, you can possibly do. Those are things you focus on and get those ones done.
yeah, literally, like I have like in terms of business development, I have a list of like 40 something different ideas that I want to incorporate into my business that would 100% be multi-million-dollar ideas. But I just pick the ones that are going to make more millions than those, and then eventually I'll slowly bring them in over time. But like if they're well worth it, I'll put them somewhere where I don't need to think, and I just know it's there, and I'll just come back to it at some point if I need to.
I guess it's a resource game, right? You can only do so many things at once.
Yeah.
So just making sure you're doing the right things. And we're going to talk a lot more about like your story, and because when we look at where you are now, and there's a lot of awesome things that you're doing, like there's a drive behind that. And so there's a lot of other things that I do want to unpack about you and your life, and people are going to be really intrigued by that. But before we do that, I do want to talk about this concept of time, because like when you said that just outside before, it hit me so much as well. It's so hard to just sit down and do nothing. Like people talk about like I don't really watch movies at all, in fact. And they go, why can't you just sit down and watch a movie? I go, if I sit down and watch a movie, like I think about 80 different things that I should be doing. Like talk
Yeah.
to me about your relationship with time and that struggle that you're going through in your life now with that.
Yeah, I have a very hard time with time.
Yeah.
But I try and make sure that my time management is done very well. So anything that I don't find important, such as cooking, cleaning, shopping, all these different things, I just get other people to do them. So like I'll pay for that to get done. And then again, I'll just do it the 80-20, right? So I'll just focus on the 20% of things going to give me 80% of results. So I'm always thinking, what are like the little mundane tasks I can just get out of my life? That way I can focus on what's more important to what I need to get done. But yeah, I even find, I know that mental health and social time and all of this is very important. So like I make sure I have time for that. But whenever I'm not doing like a set thing, I get so anxious. Literally, I stayed up, for example, 2 nights ago. I was laying in bed and I went to bed early. I left work and then came straight home. It was 7 p.m. and I jumped straight into bed. I'm like, I'm not even having dinner tonight. I need to actually sleep properly for one night and just get a full night's rest. I stayed up the latest that I've ever stayed up, like in terms of just like a work night, just because I was doing nothing. So I ended up staying up till 3, working in bed and just like getting shit done, messaging everyone, like tying up some loose ends. So like, yeah, I had this really big issue with time and that every single second is so important. And like, if you think about like the competition, right? Everyone's like, shit, I want to be able to get to $10 million or I want to get to my first $1 million or whatever. And yeah, I find that you're going up against someone else who also wants to do that. It's whoever spends the most time in the smartest way is the one that's going to be doing that. Like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
But like, there's got to be a bigger reason than just competing. Because I was saying this at the cafe as well about how when I went all in on the podcasting, I had to drop a lot of other things. And I thought, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to fucking do it properly and go for it. But like for you, you're just saying in your head, they're going, okay, well, like everyone else is trying to achieve this too. I best do more and get to work sort of thing. Like what impact does that, do you reckon that plays an impact on your life? Or do you kind of look at it as this is life? Like this is like all the work that I'm doing is like my life and I'm devoting myself to that? Or do you feel like you're kind of, I don't know, like saying no to things that you want to say yes to just to do this work?
Yeah, I'm definitely sacrificing a lot of other things in my life to do this, but I'm honing in on it. And there's a bigger reason for it. I came from foster care and I want to be one of the very few people in the world that have come from foster care and become a billionaire. Like, imagine what that could do for people like in Australia or across the world. It would actually give people a lot of hope that shit can actually get done. So that's what I want to do. I think I want to make a huge difference in people's mindsets across the world. And the only way we're doing that is by being the proof itself.
Mm. Let's go there a little bit. You mentioned obviously foster care, it's a big part of your story. And like, I don't think people truly understand what that means. Like foster care is a word, is one thing. But like all the stories that you've told and the things that that has actually gone on and the process of that in and foster care, out of foster care and all the rest of it. Let's go back to your childhood and how you were as a kid, in those early years, and tell me a bit about your story back then.
I guess particularly what part do you want to hear?
I guess
there's a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot. And the reason I left it really broad is because I want to feel like I want you to share the story the way that you want it to be shared. And so I think if we talk about some key moments in your life and those pivotal times. So let's go to the really early days, the ones that you don't remember but you've heard about, the things you got told when you were younger and all the things that you went through from a very young age, and then we'll go up a little bit from the ranks.
Yeah, so I've grown up in foster care since I was very, very young. I didn't actually realize how young I went into foster care, like the age that I went into foster care at, it was at 2 years old. So I thought that it was a little bit older, but when I was looking at the documents, yeah, 2 years old is when I first went in, and the Department of Children Services or Department of Child Services was actually monitoring me since I was 3 months old. So there must have been quite a few things happening when I was a bit younger. But yeah, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, I've been left in certain areas. I've been picked up, so I've been like just walking along the streets as a child, and a child who's probably couldn't even form full on sentences or like completely understand what's going on or where I even am. I've been completely just picked up by strangers and taken to police stations and or picked up by child services. Um, and yeah, gone in and out of foster care pretty well my entire life until around about 11 ish, maybe 12. Yeah, I think it's 11. And yeah.
It's fucking insane. But when you're saying can't even form a sentence, how old do you think you would be when you were, found on the street just walking?
There was multiple times. So when I was 4, I think 5 and 6. So 6 was a, like one of the main ones that I read about because I was explaining a lot at that age. So like I was saying, my feet hurt from walking so far because there was this one time where they reported that I had severe blistering on my feet from walking, and I was telling them I've been walking a very, very long time. I've been walking for like pretty well the entire day, and like barefoot. And like when I was picked up then as well, they were talking about how, or I was talking about how I was starving. I haven't eaten anything the entire day. I don't know where like my parents are. I don't know where I am, kind of thing.
And so that was 6 years old.
Yeah.
So that report, and you keep going back to reports. Do you have any memories from that time?
I have very few memories, and when I talk to therapists about it, apparently it's a mechanism that your body does. Your body tries to block out a lot of the memories, but I do have very like strong memories, and most of them aren't good from my childhood. So like, but like where I actually start remembering like day to day is probably when I was around, like that 9 or 10 year mark. That's when I start having day to day memories where I remember like pretty well what happened each day after that.
Mm. Let's go to those reports then, because like 4, 5, and 6, there's reports from when you were 4, 5, and 6. The 4 and the 5, I'm assuming there's not too much to report on as much because you weren't explaining as much because you couldn't really talk as much, I guess, being that young.
Mm.
Like I'm looking at a 4-year-old going, like I'm assuming they can walk now, but like on the street.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty wild. So like it obviously made me feel a certain way when I was reading it. But yeah, I think I've asked, my parents, well, my mum particularly, about a lot of this, and it seems to come back to one particular thing is that she was just in a really bad relationship, and things weren't going well. They were in and out of jail for like fraud and stuff, and so it just seemed like the wrong time to kind of have children, and I don't think that having children was currently on their agenda. So yeah, I just happened to be like well, I guess that happened to be the byproduct of everything that was going on.
Was your mum and her partner in and out of jail, or just one of them? Or
Both of them. So, yeah, what happened is my mum and my stepdad, they found this like hack with an ATM where the ATM would actually pay them money, which is pretty crazy. So they ended up pulling out like $1,000. Like you press the keys in a certain way and $1,000 would come out. And then they were like, wow, they completely cleared that entire like ATM. So they ended up pulling like $70,000 out of it or something like that. And then going ATM to ATM. I think it racked up to like $1 million that they got out of the ATMs. And technically it wasn't illegal. so they didn't have to pay the money back. But the law came in and made it illegal very, very quickly. And so they were watching my mum and my stepdad and watching their next moves, and my mum and stepdad just kept doing it. And yeah, they were watching them until they had enough evidence, and then ended up going to go grab them. And yeah, my mum and stepdad went on the run, and I do remember this. I was sitting in the car, and they were speeding off, and there were like police sirens going off everywhere. And I remember like we would have to like pull the car over, and everyone ducked down and whatnot whenever like the police would go past. So we were literally completely on the run, and then eventually they ended up getting snatched by the police. And yeah, that's another time when I went into foster care. But how wild's that?
Were you in the car?
I do remember this being in the car. I remember like them being like, "Oh, there's police! Get down, like duck!" And yeah,
So they would just pull over and duck or something, or what was?
yeah. From memory, it'd be like just pull over and duck, or like there would be like driving on the street, like let's say stopped at a red light, and I remember my stepdad would like put the seat back, because then you've got like the part that like between the front window, like the two side windows, so the front window and the back window, and that part that connects it, and like we just like kind of lean back so you couldn't really like see his face if you were sitting on the outside. So yeah, it's wild.
And how old were you then?
I would have been around about 5 years old, I'd say.
Fuck,
Yeah.
bro. And do you think when you look back at that time, like, is there something that you're holding on to from that? Is there some driver from that? Is there a lesson from that? Is there a pain from those moments specifically that you can think about right now? Or
Yeah, I never want to put my family through that, number one. Number two, I feel like it's very rare that someone from an extremely like shit background and coming from foster care and not having like a stable family, it's actually very rare that those kind of people do something like amazing with their life. And I kind of just want to break that stigma, so I'm going to go and I'm going to do something like that just most people in general can't do, and just show that fuck, it actually can be done. And I want to use that just to inspire the world, and kind of just like job done after that.
so you're 5 and you then went to foster care when they went to jail.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you went to foster care?
No. So I was in foster care when I was 2 years old, so in and out since then. But I only read that in my reports. I didn't actually know that. I thought that this probably was the first time that I went into foster care, but turns out it wasn't.
Right. And then obviously your body does this thing where it deletes memories that are traumatic potentially so for you to cope with it,
Yeah.
as you're saying your psychologist said.
Yeah. So I only have like very like key pieces of memory. Like for example, that one tucking in the car. I remember each year when it was Christmas, I'd be allowed to like see my parents, and then I just remember like crying when I would like leave, because you only could spend like a couple of hours with them. So yeah, I don't know, like just little key things like that.
It was your mum and your stepdad though.
Yeah.
What
correct.
about your actual dad?
Yeah, so when funny story actually, like when my real dad and my mum actually had me, he claimed that I wasn't his. And this is like the funniest part is my sister and I look quite similar, and we are very similar. Well, my sister and I, and she's been saying, because she sees my dad regularly, and I've never actually met him. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know anything about him at all. And she says that he's actually an entrepreneur, a very intelligent person, looks like me, acts like me. I don't know. Yeah. So, but I don't care. Like, if he doesn't want to be in my life, I definitely do not want to be in his life. Doesn't make a difference to me whatsoever.
How was it then like, because for me, I look at it and a father figure is so important sometimes for young men growing up, because, having that role model, that person that they look up to not having that? Do you feel like you seeked other people to be that father figure, or did you just never look for that? Or talk to me about like not having that father figure in your life.
Yeah, I found that I was always looking for like my friends' parents, looking for advice from them, looking for a bit of guidance from them. But I found that there was one really, really sick trait that came out of all of this, which was I ask a lot of questions rather than like I'm not usually the one speaking and giving advice. I'm usually the one asking a lot of questions, and I feel like it came from that because I needed to learn, and if I didn't ask, I didn't get. So yeah, that's I was looking for advice from a lot of different people, but it came with that really cool trait, which I feel like has changed my whole life.
Mm. And so you went into foster care at 5 years old. And then obviously when the report came out when you were 6 years old, you said that it was a lot more vivid. You explained a lot that you're walking and your feet were sore because you're walking for a long period of time. Had you gotten let out of foster care, or how did you, and why were you caught walking after you had already been in foster care a year later?
Yeah, so I've been in and out of foster care from 2 years old all the way up to around about 11 before I ended up running away and doing my own thing. But throughout this time, there was multiple times where I'd be in and out of foster care. I spent most of my time in foster care, but there would be short stints of time where they'd put me back in the parents' care. And there is a reason for that. The government, number one, doesn't want to spend lots of money on this. So they got to like pay foster carers, or they got to pay the agencies that look after the foster carers. And then number two, it's better for the child to be with their family. It's better for development and whatnot. So they obviously want to try put the children back with their family. So the parents will just, I guess, follow along a checklist of, look, I'm not drinking alcohol anymore. I'm not doing drugs. Don't know, I don't know if they have to do drug tests or whatnot, but they have to prove all these different things. And then you'd go back in, and Lord behold, people are doing drugs. People are drinking alcohol. People are continuing the same kind of shit that was happening prior. And then you would end up back in foster care.
And this would happen pretty quickly.
Yeah, it
And you'd
would.
just back and forth.
Yeah, that was like a game of handball. If you remember that game.
Yeah. And so you would go back into your mum's house with your stepdad after leaving foster care. That's how it would work.
Yeah.
And then you'd get in there, and what would be the things you'd experience that were negative in there, which resulted in you going back into foster care?
Well, my stepdad's he's like diagnosed with schizophrenia, and my mum was basically like always on his side with absolutely everything. So I think that she was kind of like blinded by what was actually happening to us. But they used to make, for example, homebrew alcohol in the shed, and they used to just make it all day, drink it, and like it was freaking crazy. So like there would be a lot of verbal, physical, and sexual abuse, both to myself and my sister. And yeah, after constantly explaining that to the Department of Child Services, my sister basically she didn't get let back into their care purely because she's a female, so she's higher risk. And yeah, so eventually it was just me coming back to that same kind of repeating scenario. And then on the last time, I was old enough to be able to be like, I'm leaving this place. And that's when I literally just packed a bag and I just started running. And I just never came back. Never ever came back.
And that was when you were 11.
Yeah.
And just before we go to that moment, you mentioned a few times that you were quite annoyed that your sister got treated differently to you when you were a kid, in terms of foster care, how she's a woman, so she didn't get let back into the family environment, but you had to go. But you were still an 8-year-old kid that couldn't defend himself. So it was almost like the same thing. And it was a bit of a weird imbalance where you're like, I had to keep coming back to this horror and she didn't. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Well, I do see why she is a female, and I feel like an easy target, especially if we're talking about sexual abuse, and a very easy target for a male to be able to exploit that. So I did kind of understand it in a way, but I was at the time like I didn't really understand why because I was quite young, right? But I just knew I was like, this is fucked up, and I was like very angry all the time about it and whatnot. Like, why am I here? Why is like this is not fair? Which is why like I ran away, and obviously me being so young, like I would just be able to stay with like my friends. So I'd be couch surfing from like that age. So like there's a one particular family that I was staying with, and like my sister and I would keep in touch every now and again while I was there. So like she would check on me, I'd check on her, kind of thing. And then there would be some times where like I would have to like go sleep back like at my mum's place, but I'd just make sure that my stepdad wasn't there anymore. And then until I finally was able to move into like a youth shelter, I think which was like 14 or 15. But yeah, I don't know. I was obviously cut about the entire situation, but I think it was definitely better for her to not be there.
But you again, you're just a kid. It's like you don't know any better, right? Like it's like how do you expect to like now looking back at it, you can know, oh, okay, it does make sense. But when you're a kid, you're going, what like what's happening here? Like why is this going on, I guess?
Yeah, but being a child and going through things like this, it feels normal. Like that is just how it is. So you don't see like other children's lives and you don't know what's normal. So you think that that's just how it is. And until you realize that that's not how it is, and then I guess that's where it leads to me like running away and whatnot. But yeah, it just feels normal. That just feels like how it is, which is super weird and fucked up.
Mm. So when you like fast forwarding to now, when you and you say you work with a therapist and talk about these times, do things come up where a lot of the drive and a lot of the motivation to do a lot of the stuff that you're doing now comes down to those really young ages in your life? Or is it more a little bit further down the story where the real drive and the realizations kicked in that things had to change?
I've always had this crazy drive to do something. And it was funny because I had these messages of when I was 16, when I was messaging one of my friends in school. And like I was talking about, yeah, I'm going to be a billionaire, just wait and whatnot. And she actually sent me a screenshot, I think a couple months ago of those. And she was just like, yeah, I believe that you'll be able to do it and whatnot. So that drive's always been there. And it probably has come from like my childhood, but I know that it's intensified as life's gone on because I feel like, I'm running out of time at the same time. And, you know, I haven't done what I needed to do. Like, I've done great things, but I've done good things. I haven't done great things yet. So I really just want to get to that next stage already.
I think it's so relative to what you've experienced though, because someone looks at you and go, you have achieved great things. But I guess maybe you're comparing to a billionaire and that's not great things. Is that where you're at with that? Or why what makes you say that you've only achieved good, not great?
Until it's something that like shocks the world, that's when I know it'll be great. But until then, I feel like I am doing good, but to me, that's not enough for me. It may be enough for anyone else, and that's completely fine. But for me, I don't know. I need to do some insane things. I don't know. Otherwise, I feel like I'm wasting like the life I was given because I was given a really rough upbringing. I feel like it was maybe for a reason. I don't know. But if I went through all that for no reason, what a waste.
Yeah, and I was saying to this at coffee this morning about how you become useful. Like
Yeah.
like you become useful because you've been through all this shit and then you can get to another side and thrive and achieve insane things, but people actually go, okay, he's actually come from fucking way below I am. I can achieve that stuff too. You
Yeah.
become useful because you can relate to all the people that are down in the mud and you can be that person that helps pull them out as well.
Yeah, no, there's this thing like that I see online as well is, a lot of people who are doing well, they don't like to give like actual useful advice. The way that like this thing that I heard is that if someone's giving you information for free, then you're the customer. So I kind of want to be like that person who actually wants to help the world and like help people get to where they need to be without actually trying to sell them anything as well. So I've been super set on that. I feel like I'll be like one of the few people out there that would actually do that.
Mm. It's so interesting when someone comes from a dark down place or not exposed to, you know, billionaires and people that are doing really amazing things. For me, I find a lot of people that have gone from where you are to where you have been to where you are now, they've been exposed to something or someone and you've gone, oh, I want that. Because like for me, when I look at it and go, I wasn't brought up in wealth, but what happened was I got exposed to people that were making a lot of money in the life that they were living. And I was like, oh shit, like there's actually color. There's more to life than what I've already seen. I want that. Was there a moment in your life where you were exposed to something or just from a young age, you were just like, no, let's go.
I was always like, let's go, to be honest. I wasn't like, I never looked up to anyone in particular. And then I stumbled across Elon Musk and, you know, I feel like when I listened to one of his podcasts, he had a lot of similar thought patterns that I had, which I found super weird. And I was just like, okay, well, since we think the same, I want to be the same. So that's kind of like what I want to do and who I kind of look up to in a way. But yeah, I've started noticing like a lot of young people doing extremely well and you don't like hear about it much. But when you see it, you're like, holy shit, I should be much further than where I am right now. Like if people younger than me are doing extremely well, like stuff that I want to be that, you know what I mean?
Do you think that's a slippery slope though, to think that way? Or do you think it's good to use that as fuel? Because like I get that, but then also like comparison just strips away all of the joy a lot of the time. When you go, oh, they're doing better than me, I'm not doing well. When really like you would kind of, if your past self looked at you, you would have dreamed to be where you are today.
Yeah, obviously there is that element, but there's also an element of benchmarking. You got to benchmark where you're at compared to everyone else, and I feel like that's super important to figure out. You know, am I at the point where I need to be? And as long as you got your trips booked in, you got your social time booked in, like that appreciation and fun will come in those times. But the times when you need to get shit done, like you need to be hard on yourself and you need to like really benchmark yourself. That's how you get shit done, I feel.
And I think people that aren't high achievers and the people that aren't striving for that do not understand that concept, because you need to be a unique breed to understand that the progress is kind of what fuels us and always wanting that next best thing. Because there's always people that don't have money and they say, oh, these rich people they're not happy. They're just constantly chasing the next thing. But it's not about the actual goal. It's the pursuit of that we're chasing.
Yeah. And I feel like, you know, I would get a lot of satisfaction out of hitting a milestone or like solving a problem. Like I love solving problems. Like that's what my business is built off, right? So I find a lot of satisfaction out of that. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like no one's ever going to be completely happy. I'd rather be like mediocre with my mental health and feelings and have money than be mediocre with my mental health and feelings and not have money. At least I can go do something if I don't feel well or if I'm not feeling happy. I can go fly. Like this year I wasn't like feeling 100%. So I just packed up and next day I went to Japan and then Canada and I came back feeling amazing. Whereas I feel like, damn, if I was feeling that shit and I had like $600 in my account, well, damn, I'm going to have to go to work, aren't I? I'm going to have to go force myself to feel even worse. So there's two sides to that.
I don't know about that, man. I want to talk about that. I want to discuss that because that's, in my eyes, running away from problems. Because if you're not feeling good, I think it's an internal game. And removing yourself from an environment that maybe is onboarding some negative thoughts, or maybe you're working yourself too hard or you're a bit overwhelmed, leaving that for a little bit, for a break, you're inevitably going to have to come back and face those again. Would you not think?
Yeah, but I don't leave to just go party and get loose and then completely disregard the reason why I left. I leave. So, for example, okay, Japan was kind of like that. I did let loose, but I did have a plan in for when I landed in Canada. So when I landed in Canada, I actually hiked up this mountain with a little notepad and pen, and I spent the whole day up there writing. Why did I feel like that? Okay, and then I write down why, and then I'd be like, well, why did you feel like that? I write down why. Why did you do that? Why? Anyway, I spent hours just asking the question why to all of these, and then I'd come down to the root cause. I put in a solution, and then when I come back, I've got a solution to that problem. But at least I'm outside of the problem. I can look at it rather than be in the chaos and try to figure it out while already in the chaos. And you have a little break while doing it. So
I agree with that. I think that that's so powerful to be able to book a way to get out with the intention of unpacking what's going on. But what was interesting was before all of that, you were saying like, I would rather have mediocre mental health and money than mediocre mental health and no money, which I get. But I think having an emphasis on improving that mental health so that you've got good mental health is important, because when I look at it and I go, what is the money actually doing? And for me, I think like the money is unlocking that freedom in a sense where you can kind of do what you want whenever you want, I guess you could say, right? Like you're kind of chasing not the money just because you want to earn money. It's for the lifestyle that the money unlocks. And then also for you as well, achieving those big goals is to prove a point that you can do it no matter what you're going through. So I guess there's all of these factors. But if your mental health is mediocre, then what's the fucking point of making the money? Because you can definitely boost up your mental health in so many different ways. I think when you look at, you said like the happiness piece before that, I'm really fascinated about happiness, because I don't think happiness should be the goal. I think it's actually stupid when people expect that they can just be happy all the time. It's not the case. But I love how Eamon Gadji talks about happiness being a combination of peace, joy, and fulfillment. And he reckons you can't have all at once. So if running a company is what fulfills you, that's chaos. That's not peace. So, so you can't be happy all the time. That shouldn't be the goal. But I think like I'm really fascinated by this mental health piece, because I reckon that's so important to make sure that you're feeling good mentally and in yourself.
yeah, and I make sure like everything's like scales, right? Your money, your mental health, your social life, your sleep, your like physical health. It's all scales. So that's the way I look at life. Is I try to balance all these scales at once. And if one's too high up, then that means that something else is going to be too far down. That's the way that I see it, because you're sacrificing each. Like if you spend more time on something else, you're taking that time away from something else. So I just treat it as scales. I'm relatively happy. I have days just like everyone else where you're not happy as well. Like some days I wake up and you just feel shit. That's just how it is. But yeah, I try like balance these scales, and I know when to balance them, which is super important. But I think if you got someone who's extremely happy in all aspects of their life at all times, I think that's pretty unrealistic. I don't think there are people like that. And then if there are, they're probably missing other key important factors in their life, because that means that they're spending a lot of time doing that to master that. So if you look at the other key areas of their life, are they missing something like freedom as well? Like, to be honest, I feel like freedom is the thing that pisses me off the most, because I sit there most nights like, dude, even when you got money, you're not even like free. You need like FU money to kind of be truly free to be able to live life the way that you want, which should be how it is. But yeah,
I guess defining freedom, right? Because there's financial freedom, but is that time freedom and all the rest of it? Because if you can have a company making a bunch of money, but if you've got to manage all the staff and you've got that on your head, you've got payroll and all the rest of it, you're not really free. Free is when you can kind of do anything you want.
yeah, but if you're smart enough, you can either, number one, build that up to a certain amount. So, for example, if you were to then convert it over to a tech company, and then it would be worth, times 5, times 10, or like usually times 8 to times 12, what it's actually worth, then you sell that, and then you've got actual money to do what you need to do. So like,
Well, that's having people in the business to run it, I guess, as well. Because if you're selling as well, obviously a lot of time the clauses might be, and especially if you're CEO, like you have to stay in the business for a certain period of time. But I understand what you're saying. When you got exit money and you got a bunch of coin, that's definitely when doors start to unlock in terms of your freedom, I guess you could say. But yeah.
And there's a lot of businesses sorry.
You're okay.
There's a lot of businesses that you could run, I feel, that are like, it wouldn't be hard to make $5,000 or $10,000 a week and not have to put in much time. I feel like that would be relatively easy. I don't know if that's just where I am now, but like that thought process, I feel like it's very easy, and anyone could really do that and go like travel full time. That's possible. I've got mates who are literally doing exactly that. They go travel. They are like, they've set their cap at, that's all they need to be free. So yeah, I don't know. I think freedom's like a super important thing that we all should be like thinking about, and working like a full-time job makes that extremely hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also with that, like defining what you actually want as well, because coming back to that fulfillment piece, if running the company is what fulfills you, you can't live that travel life because it's not going to be fulfilling for you. Like you have that freedom, but it's not actually going to be, that fulfillment piece in your life might be lacking. And it's interesting because I've had this realization where I used to think that running a company was something that I wanted, with big team and all the rest of it. And I would have defined myself as an entrepreneur. That's probably what I would have defined myself as. Then what happened was I started gaining a lot of traction on social media. I saw the impact that was making. And what I found was I was getting more of a kick out of the messages, the interactions in person when people see me, and all the impact that I was making on people's lives over running the company. And I had this realization where I thought, is this actually me? Like businessman, CEO guy, is that me? And I had to have a hard look in the mirror and go, I actually don't think it is anymore. And I don't think that's actually what I want. And so when it comes down to like what you're doing, when you say you resonate with people like Elon Musk and big names like that, it probably is the thing that fulfills you, would you say?
Yeah, I think the thing that's going to fulfill me the most is giving a lot of hope to people. Like I receive literally thousands of messages. Like it's insane, particularly across like TikTok and Instagram, about oh look, you've inspired me to change my career. You've inspired me to start this business. You've helped me do this, and this completely changed my life. There was this guy that sent me like this cocktail set, and he'd worked previously with my business, not as a staff member, but like as a client. And he was like, yeah, I got into healthcare, and like I made like a few $100,000. And this bloke's young; he's like 22, something like that, like so super young. And he's just like, thank you so much for like inspiring me and whatnot. So I don't know. I want to be like that voice for people who actually want to do something like crazy with their life, and like make like these huge impacts and whatnot. And I guess it's not going to be easy because when you look at Elon Musk, right, he says things like, my mind's a storm. I'm not too sure if you've seen that when he was talking about that. And he was saying things like, he's sacrificing his life for everyone else. And like, I'm not too sure if he said those words, but that's the impression that's the impression that he's giving off. And I do feel like when you get up to that size of business and you don't plan on exiting, but you plan on changing lives, then you probably are sacrificing your own life. And for me, I'm happy to do that because I don't know, found it easy. I feel like I gave up my whole childhood, and that wasn't even my decision. So, I feel like,
like I'm just so interested as to like why are you willing to do that? Like, what's the motivation behind that? You mentioned before about proving that you can get somewhere no matter where you've come from, but like, why do you feel like you're willing to give up your life, so to say? Because you got to be a unique breed to be able to want to do something like what Elon Musk is doing, for example.
Um, like I think I just want to be one of those people that have just come along randomly out of like, very few decades or like a century and just completely changed the world. And I don't know, I feel like just like any species, that's kind of what species are trying to do is like progress the species to continue on to be better. So I don't know, I'd love to come through and completely change the world as we know it. That's just something that would be freaking like amazing. I don't know if that would make me happy. I don't know if it would fulfill me, but
You'll find out.
someone's got to do it.
You
So I'd love to be that one.
you'll find out. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'll find out.
And when you're saying about how I've given up my whole childhood, why not give it a crack? Like keep going, give it a crack now. When you say give up your whole childhood, what do you mean by that?
Well, I never like really had like an ingrained family that I could always lean on. I never had personal connection or anything like that. So, even with my relationships now, I still struggle because of that. So, I just feel like kids were watching cartoons and shit, and I don't know, I didn't like live any of that like childhood life that you see other kids living or that most children live. I feel like yeah, I was kind of given up on, and as the consequences of that, I didn't get to enjoy my childhood whatsoever. And I do see a lot of people that go through tough things as well. So, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I actually think it's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. But um,
So
yeah,
you're just given up. You said like just it's like your family just didn't care. Is that what you mean by that?
yeah, I'd say so.
Mm.
Definitely, if my family cared a bit more, I probably wouldn't be the kind of person I am today. Or I might be. Who knows? Maybe I would have been better. But yeah, they definitely gave up on me for
Mm.
sure.
Did you know that in the moment?
No, not really. So when I knew was about 2 years ago when my grandfather's passing away, and I've like met him a few times, and I remember him like playing a bit of a role when I was younger, and he looks after my brother. So my brother's always lived with him ever since we were young, before like we went into foster care. And yeah, I flew to I forget what the place was, but it was rural New South Wales. It was out in the middle of the country. And yeah, I flew there. He was passing away, and when I walked in, like I just started bawling my eyes out. Just because all my family was there except my mother and my sister. I think my mother had just left just before I arrived, and so I was crying, and then I was having like a lot of conversation with him. He couldn't really talk properly, so he had like this thing that he could write on, and yeah, we were chatting, and he was apologizing for leaving me, and then like my auntie and stuff were coming in and apologizing for leaving me, and wished that like they never had kind of let me go into foster care. And obviously they knew everything that was going on, but like they had their own lives to live too. And yeah, that's when like it really kicked in. I was like, fuck, everyone really just gave up on me, huh?
Mm. And what did your grandfather say and write down on the notes? And what did he say?
He just says that he wish he never gave up on me, and that he's so sorry for leaving me. And yeah, not long after that, like a few hours after that, he passed away, which is pretty crazy.
Mm. Talk to me about that moment.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. Um, Especially because I was actually like 5 days late. So he was actually supposed to pass away 3 days before I showed up. So I was 5 days late because it was out in the middle of nowhere. I've got my businesses. So I was like trying to get to there. So I had to fly to Sydney, and then I had to go from Sydney to this small town, and then go to this small town, then get a car and drive a couple hours to the actual place. So like, yeah, ended up being 5 days late, and they were like, "Wow, like he's still alive." And then yeah, when I showed up in there and like we had that conversation and whatnot, like it kind of felt like he was holding on just to like release me of like that pain and pressure that I always had. And like being like, yeah, look, and kind of like gave me a bit of how do you say it? Um, what's the word when like people like agree with you and they give you that
Assurance, reassurance.
I guess so. Like, yeah, definitely gave me the reassurance that I was
Like a you were right thing, or
um just made me feel like my feelings were valid. Yeah, he validated everything that I felt. And I never got that from any of my family. So I've never had my feelings validated. So that just gave me validation for okay, I it was okay to feel the way that you felt because you were left. You were gave up on, and like that did happen. And that's something that I'd never received from my family. So yeah, it just kind of felt like he held out to like literally his last breath just to release me from that freaking feeling, which was a lot. It was a lot.
what made you want to go see him in the first place, given that you kind of hadn't had that relationship with your family? And what made you want to go there?
I got no idea. I don't know. It's just something was like saying that I should go there. And he looked after my brother and raised my brother. So my brother didn't have to go through foster care. So, you know, I should go thank him for that, which I did. And yeah, I didn't expect it to go the way that it did. Like, I didn't expect to feel like those kind of feelings. They're feelings I've never felt in my life. You know, I'm not too sure if you've had like family or like people validate such painful feelings in your life that you've held on to for so long. Like that kind of feeling is unbelievable.
What is the feeling like?
It's like you can like breathe properly again. Like I feel like whenever I'm breathing, like it's like a shallow breath, like there's a weight. I don't know. And when that happened, like I just stood outside, like obviously I had a few tears rolling out and I was like, fuck. And just taking in just big, deep breaths and just like feeling like, yeah, I know that I was alive. I don't know. It's weird. It's hard to understand.
And so that was after he'd passed away, or he hadn't passed away just yet?
So he hadn't passed away just yet. So I only came into for around about 2 hours. And then, yeah, I ended up leaving after that.
Yeah, wow. And so after all that happened, and obviously he passed away, you got back to Melbourne. How did you feel? Like, what was going on in your mind, and how did you feel in that moment when you got back to Melbourne?
Yeah, so I actually so I had to fly back to Sydney and then go back to Melbourne. So I actually extended my trip in Sydney for like an extra like 3 or 4 days. And I just kind of relaxed there. And yeah, I definitely felt a lot better for sure.
Wow. See, this is just one of those things where you can't make this up.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. And I tie it back into this useful concept of like, people can listen to this and go, holy shit, my problems mean nothing. I reckon hard is only relative to what you've experienced in the past. And you go through things like that, everything else becomes easier. Because
Yeah,
people that haven't gone through this shit or anything like it, or any shit at all, really, like getting a red light is annoying for them. Whereas like you go, mate, you didn't even understand what hard means.
Yeah, and I do see that. Like I do see a lot of people like their pain is the same pain that I feel, but different scenarios for sure. It's like, you know, you can take a candy from a baby and they'll feel the same pain as taking a parent from a baby. So like yeah, I do understand that concept.
It's so relative to what you've experienced.
Yeah.
And that's why I just love like when like David Goggins talks about like callousing the mind, just like strengthening the mind, just like you're strengthening a bicep. It's like the more times you're going through shit, the easier the shit becomes. And I think it makes life easier. Like you want to make life easier, go through more shit.
Yeah.
Because then it takes more for you to go through shit.
Yeah.
Because your shit is the shit level's up so high.
Yeah, correct. But you probably, no matter how like far you grow, I feel like you always feel the same. You're just facing up harder challenges, but at the end of the day, you're still facing challenges. You're never going to stop facing
But
challenges in your
hard is
life.
only relative to what you've experienced in the past. So
Exactly.
harder challenges relative to what you've been through, but they don't feel as hard as what they were, maybe potentially.
I feel like my challenges are definitely just as hard.
Mm.
Because if they weren't as hard, I would excel way further, way faster. So, and if they're not as hard, I'll like smash through them and I'll get onto the proper hard shit. So yeah, I feel like whenever you get through a hard challenge, you're just going to be faced up with one that's slightly harder. But it's going to be slightly easier to you because you just got over a hard challenge.
Mm.
That's the way that I feel.
What made you want? Obviously, you're starting to post some content now and get your brand out there a bit more. Like this concept of wanting to help people and prove that you can do anything, and having this drive to, become a billionaire from being at foster care, like this drive coming and then wanting to document that. Like what started all that for you? Just that posting and just trying to make a bit more of a name of yourself.
Yeah, I always wanted to inspire people. I've been super like passionate about that. That's something that's been a part of my drive, but I just knew it was never the right time. Did I have time to actually do it? Did I have the right creative ideas? Was I even in, I guess, the right stage in my life? If I didn't have anything to show, it's like, who the hell is this guy at the end of the day? But now I'm kind of like at a stage where I can at least start getting some younger people like up and running, or even like some older people who have been through some shit to at least get something started, get it done. But yeah, I think now's the right time. And I really want to go hard on it. I'm going to treat it like a business. Like I created a business plan for it. I've got strategies for it that I'm going to use to try grow it. But yeah.
You've got to treat it like that as well. Comes
Yeah.
back to that thing we spoke about earlier, how like if you don't, everyone else is trying to do it. So you've got to give it everything and give it a red hot crack.
100%. And so that's what I'm going to be doing is, yeah, just treating it like a business, and like I've hired a full-time staff member for it to try and grow it as well. So
Yeah. And I want to talk about family. Like, are you still in touch with your mum? Like, have you got a relationship with any of your family still?
look, every now and again, my mum and I will send a message back and forth, but it's very briefly. And yeah, it's literally to say happy birthday or happy Mother's Day. There's literally nothing else, no substance to it. And the only time that I actually properly messaged her was I wanted her to apologize to me and for everything that I had to go through. And I remember it being like just a really tough day. And like, I had like some relationship problems, and like a lot of these relationship problems came from my childhood. And I was just pissed off, and I was like, I want you to say sorry. And then, yeah, I had a response back which says, what, say sorry for giving you too many Easter eggs on Easter? And I was just like, what the fuck? And yeah, they like really pissed me off heaps. So yeah, I ended up like replying, being like, what the hell's wrong with you? And then after that, it's kind of just left it. And yeah, my birthday just passed, received a message on my birthday, like, happy birthday. So yeah, that's probably like the only relationship that we really have. But I've just kind of given up on that.
Do you think you're hanging on to something from that still?
Yeah, maybe. Like, obviously, if I wanted someone to apologize, but I think now I've gotten some kind of response. Now I'm kind of like, well, it just is how it is, and I just have to get over like my problems and kind of move on.
Does she want to be in your life?
Probably, but I think she wants to be in it without taking accountability, and I feel like, you know, me like losing half of my childhood, I feel like there is some accountability to that. And if you can't give that to your own child, then, you know, why do I need to be in that life?
If she came back to you and did apologize and said sorry, do you think that's something you would then re-invite, or do you think the line's gone, it's gone too far?
Depends how genuine it is.
Mm.
So if it's not genuine and it doesn't actually mean anything and it's apologizing to get something else, then absolutely not. But if it was like a genuine apology, then, maybe, who knows? I don't know. Or maybe I'd just leave it. Maybe after that, I kind of be like, all right, thanks for that. And then we can be friends.
And is she still with the same partner?
No, different person now.
Okay.
This bloke's relatively good from what I've seen. So I've seen him like a couple times when I was younger. But yeah, he's actually a really good bloke.
Well, it's positive to hear, I guess.
Yeah.
It's positive. I just think, like, when I look at, having my mum and how awesome it is, I'm so grateful that I've got really good parents. I just always, I'm really intrigued by, how that does play a role. But I guess you just have to go, well, this is my life. There's no point, like I've got to kind of play the cards that I've been dealt, sort of thing. You mentioned there was some relationship problems because of things in your past. How did you know that they were because of the things in your past, and what were they?
Because I have just really bad trust issues with friendships and relationships. So, and it just comes out of nowhere. Like there won't even be something going on and I'll just have trust issues. So, yeah, when I started speaking to a psychologist about it, they were saying, yeah, it's usually because of the way that you're brought up. And obviously, as I unpack my story, they're like, whoa, yeah, this definitely contributes to the trust issues that you have now. And it affects my relationships so bad, like really, really bad. So like, yeah, with partners in particular, I've had a really hard time, whether even if they're like great people, I have a really hard time actually allowing them in and ensuring that, I'm happy to accept their, their love and that their love is only for me. I know I found that so hard to accept.
And what, like you're saying it's trust. Have you got to a point with a relationship where you have earned it, or you've granted your trust to them, or do you feel like that's been the barrier every time that you've tried to get to that level?
Been the barrier every time, and there's probably like maybe one time that I've like granted and just kind of been like, yeah, you got my trust. And yeah, I've had exes use it also against me. So I've had exes that would, be like, if they go and cheat, they say, well, it's because of your trust issues that I went and cheated. And it's kind of like, whoa. So
Reinforce the trust issues.
yeah, so it's made it so much worse. And then when I go and reflect on it, I'm like, okay, cool. My next partner, it's not their problem. Like it's my ex's problem.
Mm. Do you think relationships are really important? Because obviously you made a post and there was a caption and you were explaining how I can't trust people anymore. I've kind of got like, in a sense, concrete walls up, and you listed all the money you've lost from all these people.
Yeah.
And you like wrote that. And this probably ties into this trust problem. But do you think that that's something that's really important to work on so that you can start to build up these relationships again? Like, do you think relationships are very important?
I have been working on my trust and just understanding that if someone does something to me, then it's got nothing to do with me. It's everything to do with them. So I've worked really hard to try to build up that trust, and I've started making a lot of like closer friends, which has been nice. And my last relationship was actually, in terms of trust, it was actually going quite well. But yeah, with that with that Instagram post, there was some key things I listed out about some of my best friends, close friends, and that's one thing I did. If people are taking money out of your pocket, it's got nothing to do with your trust issues. It's got nothing to do with any of your issues. It's everything again to do with them.
So taking ownership on that, being like, I just picked bad friends, or do you find you put it on them and go, fuck that? Like how do you deal with that?
Yeah, one of my friends stole 120,000. So not only do I pick a bad friend, that's a terrible friend.
And how do they steal money like that?
So yeah, it's a pretty funny story. So basically, I gave him a job. It was pretty funny because he was actually one of my high school bullies. So like it was hilarious. He came in, I ended up giving him a job in sales, and then he ended up making friends with someone in admin as well as someone in customer service. So admin would do the invoices, customer service would do like the delivery of the service, and he would do the selling of the service. So he would get a customer, send them over to admin, admin would invoice them and collect the payment, and then customer service would deliver the service, right? So what he did is he would work with all of them, and he would put his own BSB and account number on those invoices going out, and he would collect the amounts. But he was so good at doing it that I didn't actually realize, because he was making the business, like he was making this KPI for the business as well. So he was just that good at selling that he would, anything over, he was actually selling double the amounts. Anything over, he was like just putting it in his own name. And then the customer service person would actually look after the customer. That way, if there were any issues, essentially, they wouldn't go to the business. And if the person called in, if the person called the actual front desk, that admin person would take the call and then field it back to either the salesperson, which was my best friend at the time, or the customer service person. It was like this full like scheme that they were running inside my business, like a little business inside of a business, with their own ABNs, everything. It was wild.
What?
Yeah.
And what the teams? When was this recent? Like the team's just too big to be able to. Like, how do you not? Man, how does that happen?
It was like 3 years ago, so there was a lot of learning to be done from that. But yeah, the teams were getting bigger, were growing pretty fast, so things were slipping through the cracks. And you understand why businesses have such strict policies with anything to do with finance. It's not because they just figure out, oh, we need to put more strict policies, because they learn a hard lesson, which is usually something along the lines of that. So yeah, I learned a big lesson then, and the admin herself, she took like $40,000 as well. But yeah, we ended up getting the money back.
How'd you get the money back?
So we went to a detective, and because of the amounts, it become because usually it's a civil case, but because they literally were using my signatures, my name, everything, it become what do they call it, a legal case, rather than civil. So the police got involved, and a criminal case. So the police got involved, and they were basically going to charge them. So I could say yes, press charges, or no. And particularly with the 120,000, when it's over 100,000, becomes a federal case. So like that's a lot of money. They take fraud very seriously in Australia. So because he had like some issues with like violence and stuff in the past, he probably would have went to jail for that. So I kind of just said, well, hey, look, either I'm going to press charges, and I already like started the process. They already had detective interviews and like people coming to the house and whatnot. And I said, I'm going to proceed if you don't pay me back by this time. And yeah, just started receiving the money. The admin lady, she had spent like some of it, so she had to get some money out of her mum's house, which I kind of felt bad for her mum, but at the same time, don't steal. And my mates, he paid some money back, and then he like sold a car as well and gave me some of that money, and then he had to work off. So I was like getting him to do like all these like shit duties where you couldn't really take more money, and just getting him to do that.
See, the thing is, it's about the lesson. It's the principle of it. It's not about like the money itself. If you let that slide, yes, you're missing out on a lot of money too. But at the same time, they need to learn their lesson from that. Like that's the growth that they take right there from stealing and going, fuck, I need to pay this back and figure it all out. Yeah, feel bad for the taking it out of the mum's house, but it's her fucking fault. Like she needs to take ownership, I think.
Yeah, they definitely didn't learn. I'm actually going to court in a month's time. So I'm taking some of these people to court that were involved, because they had gone ahead and taken another million after that. So I can't say who's involved yet, but we're going to trial. So it's going to be like a full jury and everything. This court case has been going for 2 years because they've been still like there's
Why are they
been
still in the company if after they
no,
stole?
no. So there's some things that happen now outside of the company involving my company, my name, my signatures, everything that has been happening over the last couple of years still hasn't stopped to this day. It's still going like today. I could like pull stuff out of my phone and like literally show you like it's crazy. So um yeah, we had like police raid their homes about a year ago, like a year and a half ago now, and we've had like a bunch of lawyers and barristers that have been really going hard at this case. So yeah, we go to trial for a decision finally after 2 years next month. We're going for around about $2 million this time around. But I think this is like the proper lesson learned one, because this is gonna. Before it's kind of like just pay me back whatever you took, but now it's kind of like, okay, whatever you had prior to me is also going to be affected.
Will there be like jail time? Sure, for all of that, or
This one's just completely civil. So I went down the civil route, and then based on the outcome that happens, which I think is going to be very positive, I'm hoping. Based on that outcome, the depending on what they've done, so there's a few like really interesting things that they've done. Also, going to take that to the police and then start a criminal like investigation, hopefully. But we'll see how it goes.
okay. I wanna tie this into lessons that we learn on the journey, because I find with things like this, you learn lessons with things like with every positive there's a negative, and with every negative there's a positive. I genuinely believe that you can see good and bad in absolutely everything. And so I really want to talk about some lessons that you've learned throughout your journey. We've spoke about some really key moments on the journey, and I really want to talk about some lessons that you've learned from those. And this could be hard to find some. I'm not sure if you've looked back at some of the things that you've gone through and tried to see some good and some lessons from those things. But like as you said about the lesson that you learned when you were in that car early on with your mum and stepdad, where you had to duck your head. You're like, oh shit, like I'm young, but what I learned is I can't have my family like this. And so you look at how horrible that is, but now there's a massive driver to have more of a positive impact on your kids and your family in the future.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely a lesson learnt. I don't want my family to be like how I was when I was growing up. Definitely want them to have an incredible experience. That would be amazing. Probably one of the main things that I've learned, and this has been a recent learning that's completely changed my life, was, and I get this question a lot. This is probably like the main question I get. The main question is, um, I want to do this, but I don't know how to do it. The main thing I've learned from that is that if you know what to do, then put a plan in and just get it done. If you don't know what to do, it means that you need to learn it. So I've always thought about that. If I'm like, crap, okay, I'm only at a 15% profit margin, I need to get that at 25%. I don't know how to do that. Then I automatically know, okay, my brain goes in a different direction. Rather than doing a plan, I go in a different direction, which means, okay, I need to learn. Is there someone I can talk to right now? If not, okay, I'm going to start searching up audiobooks. This actually happened yesterday. And I started searching up audiobooks, and then straight away purchased one, started listening to it that day. And I know that I need to learn so that way I can go back to the first step, which was create a plan and just do it. So,
Do you think people just go straight to trying to make a plan but having no idea what to do? Or what do you think they do instead of doing what you do?
I think the main thing that most people do is they say, okay, I want to start this business, or I want to go do this. I want to travel, but I don't know how to do it, or whatever it may be. And they usually just give up because it's too hard, because you don't know what to do. And it is hard when you're going through those thoughts of like you want to do something, but you don't know how to do it. It's pretty anxiety provoking. So the way that you should be thinking is, if you don't know how to do it and you feel like you're kind of just stuck and you can't start literally in 5 minutes time, then in 5 minutes time you should have found an audiobook or found a YouTube video or done something on ChatGPT or found someone who's already been through that problem and speak to them immediately. And that's what will form the next foundation of, okay, cool. Now I can go ahead and do that. And then you'll get up to the next problem that you will feel the exact same way. So I probably now read like an audiobook a month. And I ask a lot of people a lot of questions as well. So I'm always like making sure that if I'm stuck, I make myself unstuck through learning. And I hate audiobooks, I hate reading, I hate all of that stuff. But if that's what's stopping me, then I've got to do it, unfortunately.
So it's just taking like one step at a time and kind of, again, being logical about it. I do not know this thing. How do I start to know this thing? Who can I gain the knowledge from? How can I learn it myself? How do I throw myself into this with the less amount of risk as possible, I guess, having that risk tolerance. You can't just put the business on the line because you don't know something. So let's learn and then make the plan.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And a lot of people ask me as well, what kind of audiobooks do you listen to? And like that's got nothing to do with nothing. Like I listen to the things that are relative to my pain points right then and there. So the advice that I should give to someone else is if you're stuck on this next part, find the most credible book that talks about that solution and just get it.
Mm.
And if you don't have time to listen to an audiobook, which some people may feel like they don't have the time, then get ChatGPT to find the PDF version and get it to break down the dot points of the most key points that are going to solve that pain from that book.
Mm. But also not having enough time is a priorities thing as well. I think you just have different priorities.
Well, if people say, well, I don't have enough time to do that, then read a book about how to have enough time to do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you were talking about this before we kind of fade this conversation out. You were talking, obviously, we've brought it up a few times, but we were talking about how you're struggling with your relationship with time at the moment and you can't really, you just feel like you're never doing enough. Is that how you feel, you would say?
Yeah. So this a thing that I'm trying to learn now is how to work smarter. So I already work extremely hard and I feel like I'm not getting enough done. So that means that I need to figure out how to get more done in the same amount of time, which is working smarter. So that's actually the books that I'm reading at the moment. It's all about like acquisition of companies, so how to grow like super fast, talking about different like types of strategies and growth and whatnot, particularly implementing technology. So I'm learning a lot about like automation, AI, and how that can really automate a lot of the things that I do. So yeah.
Why are you in such a rush?
Well, yeah, I could just die tomorrow. So I may as well get enough done today.
Does that actually play on your mind?
Absolutely. All the time. When do you think I'm going to die? And shit, if that was like in 2 years' time, would I be stoked about where I'm at? Probably not. So like my 10-year goal was 300 million from now. And then I learned a couple of things. I was like, all right, I can definitely hit 1 billion in 10 years. And then now I'm kind of getting confident that I want to try to do it in 5 years, which is a bit of a stretch, but I don't know. I feel like the more you learn, like you just realize that a lot of this stuff's definitely possible.
Yeah, I just get really fascinated by it because I understand that concept of trying to shock the world in a sense. But like your life won't change when you like going up the ranks from 300 million to 1 billion, for example. Like all that's really doing is changing a number and probably adding more stress. Like you've got to be a unique person to want that.
Yeah, but imagine how much you learn. You'll learn so much about people, so much about how the world actually works, so much about business. Like each time I learn something, I'm like, wow, I thought the world worked like this, but it actually works like this. And then I'll learn something and something else, like on top of that, I'm like, wow, the world actually works like this. So I feel like you'll just learn how everything actually works. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's freaking cool at the same time.
It's definitely cool, and when you grow and you learn, it's amazing because you actually get a bit of pride and you're a bit proud of the things that you're doing. At least I find, at least. But let's talk about that concept of death because I think it's an interesting one. I reckon I reckon some people have really interesting takes on death, and people can look at it so negatively, but some people look at it in a positive way, and they can use that as motivation, which I'm sensing is what you do. Is like I could die tomorrow and I'm not proud of where I am, so I need to get to work. Do you see looking at death as a positive or a negative thing?
Um, Pretty neutral. Like there's sometimes I'm like, oh, if I died like today, I'll be like, yeah, all good. And sometimes it pushes me. So I don't know, fairly neutral. There was actually a story that I made on Instagram about someone asked me, what is like the biggest thing that you want to achieve? And I said that I want to solve an unsolvable problem, and I used death as the example. So I don't know, I feel like that would be freaking
What?
sick.
So you can't like what solve death? So
Yeah.
just live forever.
Yeah, give people the option. Like that's like the only option that we don't have, right? So I feel like if we could solve that, which a lot of people are trying to do at the moment, but that's something super cool that's been on my mind. I don't know if I could ever even do anything remotely on that scale at all, but I guess, if you're very optimistic, then for sure I want to give it a crack. If I did hit $1 billion, that's for sure. Like I'd want to put it to use after that.
See, I look at that and go, yeah, when you talk about Elon Musk and being driven by him, I'm like, you've got to be some sort of sicko to want a life like him. And that's like, that's what you're saying, basically. If you're going after big problems like that, like, fuck. See, for me, and this is when I look at it and go, and this is when I have to have a hard look at myself in the mirror and go, am I actually a true entrepreneur that just wants to do things like that? And I would say I love business. I would say I'm entrepreneurial. But when I look at like things like that, I go, I'll leave that for some other people. I kind of don't, it doesn't excite me as much because I look at that and go, holy shit, like, where do you start?
Yeah, and I feel like, yeah, that's right. Where do you start? Start by reading a book. So, but yeah, I feel with like these big problems, I don't know, the reason why it excites me is because not many people can come in and solve those kind of problems. They are very solvable. Anything's solvable, right? So I just feel, it's a once in like a century almost type situation. Like Elon Musk is a once in a century type situation here. So I want to also be one of those people that like I'm like that next generation of if he passes, then like I'll just take that duty over.
Wow. That's,
But I don't know if I can do it. Like I feel like there's a lot of people that are working just as hard and probably have just as big visions as what I do, and I might not even make it even halfway there. Who knows? But it'll be the thought of it's like inspiring to me.
I think what I really want to ask you off the back of that is like in your head, like what actually like matters in your life? Like when I think about the things that matter and what are the key to my emotional well-being and happiness, because I like when I look at life, I really try and think about what actually matters and why I'm doing everything. Because if I can get clear on what matters and that big picture of what actually matters in my life for me, I want to make sure that the things I'm doing are actually getting me closer to there, not further away. And when I think about what matters for me, I think like I want to have a loving romantic relationship. I want to have an inspiring powerhouse friend group that keep pushing me. I want to look and feel my best, and I want to be able to have a beautiful family, and I want to raise some kids. And I look at all those things and like those are the things that for me are important.
Mm.
And when I look at all of that, I want to make sure that my life and the actions I'm taking get me closer to that dream. For you, I'm sensing there's a lot of like drive to achieve this thing. But is the goal to be there and have an amazing family and all the stuff of that as well? Or is the goal, okay, I want that and I'm willing to sacrifice a lot of other things to get that?
I definitely want to have an incredible family, and I feel like you can for sure do both. You just need to find the right person. So I will definitely make sure that I have like an amazing wife, children, whatnot. I want to be an amazing dad as well. And I will have to sacrifice some time to work on this bigger vision, but at the same time, there's opportunity to do both as long as I select the right person and I do really well at like that process. But if I look at like the bigger vision, it would be cool to like save someone else's family. Cool to save 100,000 families, millions of families. Like that's the kind of shit that I want to do, while also being a part of my own.
So, because when I look at, say, my family, and there's amazing things of it, there's a lot of lessons I've learned, but then there's also things that I want to do differently with my family. What are the things in your upbringing that you think were lacking that you want to make sure are in place with your family as you grow it?
Security, for sure. Emotional support. That's definitely the two main things, and I would say free of trauma. Absolutely, that's one thing that I would never wish on anyone, like anyone at all. Yeah, I would make sure that like security in terms of like financially, you don't have to worry about that. That's what I'll sort out. And then in terms of yeah, like emotional security, like I'm a very emotional person. Like I feel like I'm not like incredible with my feelings, but like I understand my feelings really well, and I give a lot of love and I give a lot of time to the people who deserve it. So I feel like I could provide that, and I would love that in return as well. And then yeah, in terms of like trauma and that, obviously, that can be just left in the past.
I got a couple of things I want to unpack there. The trauma thing, trauma is not something you give, it's a result of something happening. Would it be the case? So like you go through something and it was a traumatic experience, and so it keeps getting resurfaced. It would be. So when you say you want to have a trauma-free life for your family, how can you control that?
The things within my control, I should say. So rather than obviously, if someone gets in a car crash, like couldn't really help that. But the things I can control is making sure that I have a healthy, happy household, and can remove like emotional trauma and physical trauma that could happen like in a household, or like through stress, or like whatever it may be. So that's one thing that I want to remove.
Remove the things that you can control, because your family certainly didn't do that for you. Yeah. And
right.
Financial security. This is really interesting. A lot of people I speak to on this show, massive high achievers, I ask them what their biggest problem is, and they say parenting. And how do they parent their kids knowing they can give them the world, but if I give them the world, they won't become amazing people? And they kind of have this balance of, I had nothing when I was a kid and I hated it. Now that I have everything, I want to give my kids everything, but I don't want to make bad people by giving them everything. So it's
just
this
repeat
balance.
the cycle.
Exactly right. So when you say financial security for your family, is that shooting the kids in the foot, especially the men, if you had sons, that, want the attractive traits in a man is like drive and ambition and ability to provide and all of these things, and being fit and healthy? Like if you gave a man or gave a kid anything, do you think it would make it a lot harder for them to actually obtain those traits because all of them are earned?
Potentially. I never actually thought about that. I'm still quite young. Don't plan on pumping kids out anytime soon. But there is, I guess, an aspect of that. But I would heavily focus on values. I feel like there's a lot of people who have grown up in all different ways, whether they've come from rich families, come from average families, come from low socio-demographic families.
Yep.
I found that the one thing that's consistent is if their values are right, they are good people. So I don't know. I feel like money could play a role in that, but if you are really strong on like values, then the rest, it doesn't matter about like these external things, I feel like. But who knows? That's probably problem that's going to hit me in the face in like 6 or 7 years time, maybe more. But yeah,
I just think it's an interesting topic to talk about because like I want the same where it's like I just want to give them everything. But I recognize that when I look at me and all the characteristics that are attractive in me, they've all been earned through going through shit. And so you kind of need to put these people through shit to make them special. Like Hormozy talks about like if you were to build a video game character and all the traits that you want in that person, you can't just give them all those traits. All those traits are earned. And so if you want to have the best video game character, you need to put them through some shit. It's like you want a man to be patient. You probably don't give him things straight away. And so when we look at all the things that we want and the traits that are attractive, we kind of need to go through shit to earn them. So it's just an interesting thing. And obviously parenting, if you're not looking at kids anytime soon, as I'm not either, like it is something we can cross that bridge when you get to it, I guess. But I still think it's something that's interesting to talk about. I want to just ask you one more thing before we wrap up. I feel like I have a sense of what it is, but a lot of people can look at your life and go, holy shit, like he's made it. And like he was going through so much shit, but now he's got money, he's good. What would you say your biggest challenge is right now in your life?
my biggest challenge is figuring out how the hell to get to that like next stage. Like I've done well in terms of what I've needed to do, but then I look at other people around me, I'm like, shit, like I need to like speeden up this process. And like, that's the one thing that's literally on my mind today. It was on my mind this morning. It was on my mind last night. So that's the one thing that's on my mind is that I'm not doing enough. And that's why I'm like talking about like time's my biggest problem at the moment. I want to figure out how to get more done in the same amount of time. That's what I'm trying to learn at the moment. But yeah, it's been weighing on me a little bit.
Yeah. And so when you have those times when your head hits the pillow and you're just thinking and your mind's just exploding with all these different things, it's mainly about that? Or do you find that's the spark and then it spirals into all these other different thoughts?
Yeah, it can definitely spiral into all different thoughts, which get like a bit chaotic. So I try like write my notes down and stuff to try clear my head a little bit. But yeah, my head's always going crazy with a million thoughts at once. But that's the 1,000,001 thought that's gone through my head lately.
Yeah, okay. No, it's interesting, man. I just get fascinated because I'm seeing you're in a phase of your life where it's heavily work focused. You're trying to grow, build, we haven't really spoke about like relationships or anything. Like I'm not sure if that's like a phase that you're in, or you kind of feel like you're in a growth phase and then re-looking from there, would you say, in terms of that aspect?
Yeah, I spent years actually trying to look for love, and I wasn't ready myself, but I didn't realize it, but I was really like craving, like love and attention from a partner. And I feel like that really messed with my whole career and whatnot because I wasn't really focused on my career. So I got literally nothing out of it. And so now I've kind of put the brakes on that particularly after my last relationship. Things were actually going quite well. And then I decided to put the brakes on it myself. I was like, you know what? I just want to go full on into my business and see what I can actually do because I've got some things that I want to achieve. And things have just been like jumping up day after day since.
Well, I guess when you're looking for something and you like feel like you need something, it also gives off just a horrible smell, and the girls, people don't like it.
Yeah, literally.
And you'll find the more you switch off that and go in your business, they all come.
It's been ridiculous, like the switch up. I have not like.
It's an energy thing, man.
Yeah,
it's legit.
Yeah, like like when I was looking for it, I couldn't find like anyone, and then like now I've had like people come to me that seem like, oh, you could be the right person, but it's not the right time. I'm like having to force myself, like almost bite my tongue, being like, no, you got to focus on work. You got like a year or two of like full on growth before you start looking again.
See, that's so interesting too, because for me, when I find it's like the right time, the right person, I feel like if you had a checklist of all the things that are important in your life in terms of like in characteristics in a relationship and what you want, and someone comes along and they tick all of those, we spend all this time investing into our business. We take risks in our business, our health. We do all these things. But then when it comes to a relationship, we shy off.
Yeah.
And I look at it and go, if I'm growing my business, 100% I'm going to pie off and not invest too much time in people that I don't see like being potential. But if I have a pretty extensive list of things that are a must have in a relationship and must not have in a relationship, and I have all those clear, and I find someone that ticks all those boxes, in my eyes, I feel like I'd be shooting myself in the foot, not trying to explore it. Because it's like when I think about my key to my emotional well-being and happiness, I feel like it's connection. And if I can find someone that's going to be that person and they seem like they're ticking the boxes, I kind of want to jump in and just see what happens, take that risk. But are you feeling like concrete walls up? No, not happening right now for a little bit.
Yeah. I just don't know, number one, if I'm ready. Number two, honestly, it seems like when I thought people are the right people, they're just, I find very clearly that they're not, like 6-12 months later. So,
And the love clouds that vision a little bit.
Yeah. So, you know, do I even know who the right person is? Do I even know what that checklist looks like? Probably not. So
that's fair enough. Cool, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Just before we wrap up, is there anything else you've been thinking about recently? Is there anything you want to talk about that we maybe haven't spoken about on this chat?
No, we had a good chat. Yeah,
cool.
Ticked off a lot.
We ticked off a lot. Man, I'm super inspired. I can commend you with what you're trying to do because it takes a unique breed to do that. Like when I'm listening to it, there's a massive level of respect for what you're going after. Some parts I can't resonate with, some parts I can, but I respect what you're trying to give a crack, and it's so awesome to see the impact you're making. Obviously, we didn't talk specifically about your business and what that is, but everyone that's new or that's not heard of Kyle, go and check out his stuff. It's so awesome. They can find you at Kyle Hunt on socials.
Yep.
Yeah. But without further ado, we are wrapping up this show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. If you've made it to the end and you're not sick of my croaky, annoying voice yet, then leave us a review on Spotify or Apple or subscribe on YouTube, wherever you're watching this. Helps the show grow, helps us get amazing people just like Kyle back on the show. But without further ado, we are wrapping up for this week, and I'll see you guys next week.
Cheers, guys.
Let's go.